Trudy Mason sitting in for Elias today. We saw what happened in LaSalle-Amard-Verdun on Monday, and we seem to be hearing a lot of this phrase, devastating loss, in terms of what happened to the Liberals in that federal by-election. It was a tight three-way race heading into it. And there are questions about exactly how those results are going to play out as we head into a very uncertain political season, with the Liberals no longer having their support agreement with the NDP. Here to help us decipher all of this is Philippe J Fournier, Politico columnist and a pollster, creator of 338canada.com. Philippe, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Judy.
Good morning. Well, let's before we look forward, let's look back, because your 338canada.com had an amazingly accurate prediction in that by-election, in that riding. How did you come up with that forecast that proved to be so uncannily accurate?
Well, first, I want to thank you for this. I do not like necessarily to toot my own horn, but I get so much crap online when I'm wrong that it's nice to have some recognition when I'm right. So on Sunday, the day prior to the by-election, I posted 28% for the Bloc, 28% for the Liberals, and 26% for the NDP. And it was 28, 27, 26. So it was really close, well within the margin of error. And I had predicted that the winner of this by-election would at most get 30%. It was a highly divided vote, obviously because LaSalle-Amard-Verdun is a hybrid district covering like various parts of Montreal that usually have voting patterns that differ from each other. And to go back to your original point, I mean, the Liberals won this riding by more than 20 points 3 years ago. And in June, they lost another riding they had won by more than 20 points in Toronto-St. Paul. And so multiple by-elections that should have been safe seats for the Liberals are now in the hands of rival parties. And this is a huge problem for the incumbent Liberals going forward.
I think the thing that a lot of people accepted going into the LaSalle-Amard-Verdun by-election is that there was a lot of disappointment with the Liberal offering. The candidate there had been parachuted in. There was a big kerfuffle because there was no internal selection process for the candidate. She'd already been chosen internally to be the candidate there. But I think that maybe what surprised some people is that voters upset with the Liberals for any reason, not just that, but for any reason, would park their vote with the Bloc as opposed to the NDP, which campaigned very heavily in that riding. I think we interviewed Jagmeet Singh 2 or 3 times just in the maybe 10 days that led up to the vote. Why do you think the voters swung toward the Bloc and not to the NDP or the even the Conservatives who are trying to make some noise here in Quebec?
Well, that is a fair question, and it's hard to give you an answer that is definitive because such a highly divided result. I mean, the fact that the Liberals came 250 votes away from winning, had Miss Palestini won, perhaps she would have quelled those concerns about her nomination. Those nomination problems usually come up even more when the candidate loses. But then again, with the Bloc Quebecois, yes, it won fair and square, but 72% of voters did not vote for the Bloc Quebecois. So it's hardly a mandate for anyone that wins the riding, since there's so much division. Why did the Bloc Quebecois win, and why didn't Liberal voters go to the NDP? That is a good question that I think we will be able to answer once we see the poll by poll results. But for now, what I see in the numbers is that there are 12,000 voters who voted for the Liberals last time that either stayed home or supported another party. Like, the Liberal Party lost 12,000 votes. And so they were not able to coalesced their coalition that had them in power since 2015 in that riding. So the NDP did what it could. I think the NDP did fairly well, but they had the better known candidate, and all they could do was the mid-20s. They couldn't even get into the 30s. So this tells me that the Liberals and the NDP, whether they like it or not, are joined at the hip in the mind of many voters.
Turning our attention to what is to come for this political season, the House of Commons is back. There's going to be a test of confidence, next week we're looking at now. What can you gather from what you've been seeing in the polls about the likelihood of the opposition forcing an election? Are any of them doing so well that they'd be willing to risk that?
Well, that's a really good question. It seems strange that a confidence vote would come that early. But then again, if you're the Liberals, you know you're in a bad place, but so is your main rival, the NDP. Let's remind that the Bloc Quebecois and the Conservatives together do not have enough votes to topple the government. So even if the NDP decides to vote against the government, there's still the question of the Bloc Quebecois could align with the Liberals. If all the parties are against the Liberals, then we will have a ballot sometime probably in November. I doubt this happens for many reasons. One of them is that there are 3 provincial elections coming up in this country: Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, and British Columbia. I don't think the parties want to spread their resources too much, but then again, sometimes an election can happen accidentally. So we will see how it goes. And on a more personal level, let's please wait until I have more time to cover this election. Please, but we'll see.
Well, are you taking odds on the leadership of Justin Trudeau in light of this loss in La Salle-Verdun, and also the fact that they weren't able to make any progress out west in that by-election either?
Right. Well, if you told the story of the Liberals without naming the Liberals or naming the Prime Minister to anyone, saying, oh, okay, this is a party that's been down in the polls for about 20 points in more than a year, that's been in power for a very long time, a Prime Minister that is not popular, his personal numbers are even worse than in his party, anybody would think, okay, then time is up, right? Time for a change. So logically, the numbers would suggest it's time to move on. But we are talking about politics. We are talking about human beings, and sometimes logic doesn't apply. Monsieur Trudeau appears to be sure that he's hanging on and he wants to take this fight with Pierre Poilievre. At some point, you would think somebody in caucus would raise a flag, would perhaps have organized leaks in the media to put more pressure on the PM to resign. But, I'm a numbers guy, and what I see right now is not rational. So unfortunately, that's the best answer I can give you.
In terms of what you think Canadians want, judging from not just the polling on the specific by-elections, but the other polls, the mood of the country, does Canada want an election this fall? Does Canada want an election next spring? Are we ready for it?
It is not clear that Canadians are unanimous on this. We had polling on this last week from Ipsos Canada that asked basically, after the breakup of the NDP and the Liberals, do you want the opposition parties to work with the government or to topple the government? And it was 56% work with the government, 44% topple the government. And it was in Quebec that most voters wanted opposition parties to work with the government to avoid an early election. So Canadians are divided on the issue. Obviously, Conservatives are in a hurry to go to an election. And looking at the polls, you understand why. But there's no broad consensus on that issue.
Last question for you, Philippe. Indulging your personal curiosity, what avenue of exploration are your polls going to be looking at that you're particularly interested in seeing the results the next few weeks or months?
Well, the only significant movement we have seen in recent weeks is the federal NDP dropping a few points. And I wonder whether the breakup of this entente with the Liberals will have some NDPers or even maybe left of center Liberals reconsider their vote. The numbers have been stable for so long. The Liberals last Christmas, on average, were 25%. And last week, they were 24%. So it hasn't moved. But the NDP went from 20% on average to 16%. And so this is the movement I'm looking forward to. If the NDP goes up in the polls, perhaps they'll be more election ready. But right now, they would get decimated, especially out west. So I'm going to be following these numbers over the course of the fall.
I've been speaking to Philippe J Fournier, Politico columnist, poll analyst, and creator of 338canada.com. Philippe, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.